All right, welcome everybody to the City of Lake Forest Park City Council regular meeting, Thursday, April 10th. And I've asked Councilmember Lebo to lead us in the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Hey, so we're going to adopt the agenda, but I would like somebody to make, in the interest of our audience, to switch 6A and 6B, item 6A and 6B. So would somebody propose that?
I'll move that we amend the agenda to swap 6A and 6B.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, great. All right, so any other changes anybody on the council wants to see? Great. Okay, so we'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Second.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of adopting the agenda as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed or abstaining? All right, thank you. So I guess then we will move on to public comments. So yeah, Chief. Thanks, Chief. Okay.
You want to read the comment?
Oh, sure. Thank you. Thanks for the reminder. The council will not be accepting online public comments. This portion of the agenda is set aside for the public to address the council on agenda items or any other topic the council might have purview or control over. However, the mayor or council may not respond to comments from the public. If the comments are of a nature that the council does not have influence or control over, then the mayor or presiding officer may request the speaker suspend their comments. The council may direct staff to follow up on items brought up by the public. Comments are limited to a 3-minute time limit. Thank you so much. Okay, so at this time, I'd like to call, let's see, Connie Barnes. Welcome.
Hello. I forget what I have, just Connie Barnes. Do I have to give my address? No. And my husband Byron Barnes? No, okay. We are residents of Lake Forest Park. So Byron and I wanted you to know that we stand in strong support of our city council's resolution affirming the importance of protecting the rights and dignity of immigrants in our community. This resolution reflects our city's commitment to equity, inclusion, and justice for all residents, regardless of their place of birth or immigration status. Immigrants are an integral part of our neighborhoods. They contribute to our economy, enrich our culture, support our schools and local businesses, and bring new ideas and energy that help our city thrive. Many have come here seeking safety, opportunity, and a better future for their families, often overcoming immense obstacles along the way. By standing up for immigrant rights, we not only protect vulnerable members of our community, but also affirm the values of compassion, fairness, and human dignity. We believe that no one should live in fear or be denied access to basic services and protections because of their immigration status. Policies that foster inclusion and trust make our city stronger, safer, and more united. So we commend our wonderful city council for taking this important step, and we urge continued action to ensure that our city remains a place where all people, regardless of origin, are welcomed, respected, and empowered to contribute to the common good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll move on to Sally Yamasaki. Welcome.
Thank you. I just want to commend Connie in her great 3-minute talk. I am here for the same reason, to hope that, or I know you will, I'm hoping that you'll affirm the rights of immigrants to feel safe in our city. And as I was sitting here thinking about it, I couldn't help but think about my college days when remember, I don't know if any of you know Holly Near, but there was a song called Hay una mujer desaparecidos. And that was about how the women were just disappearing. And I remember at the time thinking, God, that's terrible, but it would never happen here, right? So the importance of standing up, then I thought, was I remember my dad used to say, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So today I'm proud if our city passes it and reaffirms it, that our city's going to stand for something in these times when people are afraid to stand for things. And I want to thank you again. This is a second time around, but it's important. So thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Okay. Sarah Phillips. Welcome.
Thank you. I want to associate myself with those people. Those are nice people saying nice things. And I agree with it. And I'm hoping that the city does take a position in favor of that. I'm here actually to talk about something else though today. I wanted to let you know that the Climate Hub people are applying for a grant from the American Geophysical Union for something called Thriving Earth Grant. And it's there's no money associated with it. What we would get if we got this grant was a scientist. And we're asked, the grant that we're putting together is associated with the climate action, the Climate Hub. And if you've been to the hangar in Kenmore, you may have seen they have a touch screen where you can sort of do things. It's mostly business. We'd like to get a touch screen. And then the application we're making is for a scientist to do a GIS overlay and then collect the citizen science efforts of Lake Forest Park. And it turns out there are a huge number of people. Brookside has been collecting weather information for eons, apparently. All the fish, so the stream keepers have 10 years of data, and we have Purple Air has collected air stuff. So that the notion would be that this scientist would work with a couple of us and develop this overlay, and then you could touch it and you could see what people were doing. And then that would be linked in the climate action plan with the goals and the actions that you all have approved on the Climate Action Committee. So I just wanted to let you know we're going ahead and doing that. The other things I wanted to report was that Solarizing Lake Forest Park and Kenmore is going on tonight, and there'll be one more workshop next month. And we're working on two things. One is getting ready for, are you ready for fire season? And we're gonna do some stuff with what happens to your lungs when you breathe in smoke? How do you get prepped up? We're gonna do, the Climate Hub is not going to be painted on Earth Day, but it's going to be outlined on Earth Day because everything takes way longer than we thought. And the other thing is that we are moving ahead with Octavia Butler. I know you all know that she lived in Lake Forest Park the last 10 years of her life. All of her novels sort of lead to the Northwest. Or her last novels. And we have, there's a new book coming out, and we have wrangled the author of this book to come out on a book tour. It was not what they were planning, but because we were doing some other things. So there'll be a week of stuff about Octavia Butler. We're trying to link the Langston Hughes, Terry Morgan, who's a resident of Lake Forest Park, has done a website. We're going to try and get a mural up. We're going to do literary bingo with the libraries. So to sort of weave a number of things that begin to raise up this local resident of Lake Forest Park. We were thinking we'd like to get a plaque to put in front of the house, but we didn't know how to do that. So I talked to somebody about how do you get a plaque so they know that this is a historic location. So let's see, I think that's serve. I didn't want anybody to be surprised that we were going ahead with this application for this Thriving Communities Grant. If we get it, it's going to be amazing. It's all online and we can, do this stuff. We will need to raise some money for the touch screen, and the one in Kenmore is about $8,000. So we're looking to see if we can figure that out too. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Sarah. Appreciate basically all you do for the city and the committee as well. Okay, at this time, is there anybody else in council chambers who'd like to make a comment? Okay, seeing none, then I'm going to do this, which I've always wanted to do. There, closing public comment. Okay. All right. So I guess the next item on our agenda is the consent calendar. Somebody want to move?
I move the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any comments? Okay, so all those in favor of the consent calendar, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed or abstaining? All right, passes. Thank you very much, council. Okay, we've switched ordinances 6A and 6B, so we're going to do the resolution 25-2011, affirming the Keep Washington Working Act discussion first. So let's see. I guess I'm going to present then. Yeah. Presenting from the chair, always a good sign, right? Okay. So my motivation for writing this, and I think all of you've read it, is that basically I'm a child of immigrants. And specifically, it was a discussion I was having with my brother the other day, a few months ago, after the new administration in Washington had taken office. And one of the things that we were joking about is, oh, I wonder if our mom's safe. And, we were joking that she'd get a free trip to Japan otherwise. And, at the time it was sort of lighthearted, but as events have unfolded, it's becoming more and more alarmingly clear that, of course, just the fact that you have immigration papers and things like that is not necessarily a guarantee that you're going to be safe in this country. And I wanted to do our bit here to reaffirm the values that we have in this community about what we think about basically our immigrant residents, the fact that they do a significant amount of work, that they do pay taxes, they abide by the laws, and the point is that basically the vilification just because of your immigration status does seem to be misplaced. And I really wanted to get the word out that Lake Forest Park is a welcoming a community, that we actually value all residents and their contributions they make to our society. So that's in a nutshell kind of the reasoning I had. Just to give you a little bit of my backstory, my grandfather was also an immigrant, so my family came over in waves, as it were, and every single time they came, they met lots of people that were very supportive of what they were trying to accomplish in the U.S. Sure, there was some opposition. Sure, there was some pushback. But for the most part, they thrived under those conditions. And I'm really hoping that this is the value of that this community places on immigrants and on the fact that we want to keep this going into the future. After all, one of the things that's most alarming to me, somebody who's approaching retirement, is that as basically we move forward, the number of births decreases, and the only reason why the U.S. isn't suffering the same thing as Japan and some of the European countries are doing is because we have a healthy immigration that's replenishing the population. And the fact is that, one of the things that those other countries I mentioned are looking at is how do we pay for basically all these old folks that we suddenly have? So I really think that basically we really need to look at how we view immigration as a positive in this light. So with that, I entertain any other comments council has. Councilmember Riddle.
We don't typically read our resolutions, but I think the wording here is quite lovely, and I would request that perhaps you read through the whereases if you wouldn't be opposed. It's almost like it's a proclamation.
Absolutely. Okay. Need to get a copy of it. Sorry.
Didn't want to put you on the spot. I
No,
apologize.
not at all. Not at all. Okay. And while I'm doing this, does anybody else have a comment?
I'll just offer that I'm supportive of this because I think it does represent our values. And in time when we do have this fear that's being generated across our country at immigrants and others, that we should take a stand that says we stand for something, and we stand for people, and we stand for human rights. All persons, all human rights.
Thank you, Councilmember Leva. Oh, Councilmember Goldman.
Yeah, I'm also supportive. Thank you very much for working to draft this. Yeah, I mean, it seems that in today's society, immigrants are among the communities being the most scapegoated by the federal administration. And so it's really important for us to take a stand and stand up for those people that are being marginalized unfairly. So I'm very supportive of this.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, I've got it up, so I'm going to read the resolution. Resolution number 25-2011, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake Forest Park, Washington, affirming the Keep Washington Working Act grounded in the principles of the Charter for Compassion. Whereas the City Council of the City of Lake Forest Park is dedicated to fostering a safe and thriving community for all residents, upholding the principles of law, justice, dignity, and respect for all within the city, and providing city services in a fiscally responsible manner. And whereas on March 9th, 2017, the Lake Forest Park City Council approved Resolution 1606, declaring Lake Forest Park to be a welcoming, inclusive, and safe community. And whereas the City of Lake Forest Park recognizes and upholds the rights of individuals to be treated fairly and to live their lives with dignity and respect and free from discrimination or targeting because of their immigration status, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, faith, race, national origin, age, ability, ethnicity, housing status, economic status, or other social status. And whereas the Keep Washington Working Act, adopted by the Washington State Legislature in 2019 as the engrossed second substitute Senate Bill 5497, establishes statewide policies to ensure public safety and protect the rights and dignity of Washington's immigrant and refugee communities. And whereas the KWWA prohibits the use of state and local resources for immigration enforcement, thus fostering trust between immigrant communities and local law enforcement and reducing fear of reporting crimes or accessing services. And whereas Governor Ferguson signed Executive Order 25-04, protecting immigrant families and responding to family separation, and created a family separation rapid response team as a part of the Department of Children, Youth, and Families to explore recommended policies and actions for mitigating, to the extent possible, the harm, trauma, and other lasting effects on children who experience family separation through the deportation or detention of their parents or primary caregivers. And whereas, if implemented, mass deportation policies will significantly harm children with parents of varying immigration status, many of whom are children who are American citizens and enjoy the rights and privileges afforded to full citizens. And whereas the city recognizes the inherent worth and equal rights of all people and is committed to ensuring that Lake Forest Park remains a welcoming, inclusive, and safe community for all who live, work, and visit here. And whereas the city strongly condemns any act of harassment, bullying, intimidation, violence, or other acts of hate that are based on immigration status, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, faith, race, national origin, age, ability, ethnicity, housing status, economic status, or other social status. And whereas the city will continue to work in cooperation with our community partners to ensure our services and programs are accessible and open to all individuals. And whereas, as the leaders in the community, we have a special responsibility not to stay silent in the face of discrimination, harassment, or hate against any of our residents, and we choose to be a leader in protecting the human rights, equity, public safety, dignity, and social well-being of all individuals. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Lake Forest Park as follows. Section 1, the City Council reaffirms that Lake Forest Park is a welcoming, inclusive, and safe community that serves its residents regardless of immigration status, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, faith, race, national origin, age, ability, ethnicity, housing status, economic status, or other social status. Section 2, the City Council is committed to continuing our work to reach out and connect with all members of our community to ensure that our programs are accessible and open to all individuals and continue to uplift the voices and contributions of all individuals and communities. Section 3, the City Council reaffirms its commitment to the Keep Washington Working Act, including the directive that the Lake Forest Park Police Department personnel shall not inquire into immigration status during interactions with residents or assist in civil immigration enforcement activities. Section 4, the City of Lake Forest Park supports immigrant and refugee communities and will work proactively to build trust and reduce fear among immigrant and refugee communities, ensuring that all residents feel safe accessing city services and protections. Section 5, the City Council encourages residents to seek accurate information regarding their civil rights, including the right to resist warrantless searches and seizures of their person or property. Section 6, the City Council encourages employers to educate their employees to foster an environment where customers and employees alike may frequent their businesses or places of work without intimidation or fear. Section 7, the City of Lake Forest Park stands in solidarity with all immigrant refugee residents and commits to fostering a safe, welcoming, and equitable community for all those who call Lake Forest Park home. And that's all right. So, right. So, if there are no further comments, I'd like to entertain a motion for this resolution.
I make a motion to move resolution 25-2011, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake Forest Park, Washington, affirming the Keep Washington Working Act grounded in the principles of the Charter for Compassion.
Second.
Great. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of Resolution 25-2011, affirming the Keep Washington Working Act, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed or abstaining? All right, passes unanimously. Thank you, council. And thank you, residents who came and spoke in favor.
Oh, that's one question. I know when we passed the LGBTQ resolution 2 weeks ago, the city put out a news flash. Is that something the city might do for this one as well?
Yep. Great. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Tracy, for being willing to read that all out loud. I think it was very impactful, and thank you so much for doing that.
I appreciate that very much. And I also wanted to acknowledge the contribution of City Clerk McLean, who basically came up with all the different resolutions that are out there and was able to synthesize them into a wonderful document. So appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving to our other ordinance and resolution for action. It's the one that we were discussing at the work session, Resolution 25-2010. And I believe this is Director Hoffman.
Thank you, Chair and Council. Mark Hoffman, Community Development Director. This proposed resolution was introduced at the work session, but for the video and background, I'll give a brief summary. We have a professional services agreement with SAFEbuilt for building services, plan review, inspections, building code interpretations. The city's building official retired October 1st. We had a backup contract in place with a consultant. They didn't have the bandwidth to provide adequate services. They gave notice, 30-day notice to end the contract. Just prior to that, we did a search and found a responsive, able consultant that could fill in immediately. We put that in place. That existing contract is in your packet materials, runs through the end of this year, December 2025. We're asking tonight to extend that to March 2026 and amend the not to exceed number to a total of 120,000, up from the current 30,000. City's been recruiting to fill the vacancy of building official. We've come close, but it's still vacant. We're still going to try. We would like to extend this agreement with SAFEbuilt to provide those interim services. And the recommendation is to approve the resolution. Thank you.
All right. Council questions? Councilmember Riddle.
Thank you. To clarify or to reiterate from what we heard during the work session, that the current not to exceed is approaching, and you are asking us to make action on this evening because there is a time constraint to extend the contract. Is that correct?
There is, to stay in conformance with the terms of the existing contract. SAFEbuilt notified us in the last few weeks. They're approaching the not to exceed number. We had a discussion with them. What are the options? The vacancy still exists. So we asked them if the new number of 120,000, given the ebb and flow of what we expect, would cover the interim and that the term would be mutually beneficial to extend into 2026. So they're on board. They're waiting to see results of tonight. The activity continues. We'll still have inspections tomorrow. And it was introduced at workshop, second touch here. It's not critical that we have it this hour, but we would like to, because that next invoice is soon forthcoming.
Mhm.
And we do not want to be in a position of not providing those inspection services primarily.
Councilmember Goldman?
Yes, thanks for bringing this to us. And this is something we talked about at the work session, but just to kind of reiterate it here. While this would be giving you authority up to $120,000, in the event that, let's say, next month we hired a building official, we would then just end the contract or dial down the contract. So we don't have to spend the 120 if we get a building official sooner.
That's correct. It's for services provided. If we have no plan reviews from here on out, there is no expense for that category. If we have no inspections, there's no expense, but we know we will. It will be needed, but it's on an as needed basis. There's no expenditure if those tasks are not requested. We anticipate filling the position, not needing this contract for interim services, and then the longer term, having a safety backup RFQ long-term provision. But we're sort of in a delicate moment where we need this service, and that would require more time after the vacancy is filled.
Councilmember Good?
And the cost for this is included in our budget already.
It is primarily on permit fees.
Hmm.
And for those categories that are not recouped by permit fees, it's covered by the salary that we're not expending.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thanks very much for your report. And I think we need to waive the three-touch rule if we're going to act on this tonight. So I'd entertain a motion.
I would move that we waive the three-touch rule for Resolution 25-2010 to ensure continuity of services for our community.
Second. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so is there any discussion on the waiving the three-touch rule? All right, Councilmember Goldman?
Yeah, so I mean, ideally, we would have multiple touches on this. I think it's in the interest of the public. We don't want to be in a situation where we hit that $30,000 cap in the near future, and then we no longer have a building official until this is approved, or we no longer have services providing building services. So in the interest of making sure that we can continuously provide that service to the public, I think it's reasonable that we extend this contract.
Any other comments? Yeah, and I want to note that it is also for inspections as well. So yeah, this is a vital service the city does provide. All right, seeing no other comments, then I think we're ready to act. This is the vote on the three-touch rule. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed or abstaining? All right, thank you very much, council. Now I'll entertain a motion for the main thing.
I move Resolution 25-2010, authorizing the mayor to sign an amendment and extension of the professional services agreement with SAFEbuilt Washington for municipal building services coverage.
Second.
All right, so I have a second. So any further discussion on the motion itself? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of resolution 25-2010, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed or abstaining? All right, seeing none, motion is approved unanimously. Okay, so is there any other matters for council discussion and action, or for that matter, other business? I'd entertain a motion to excuse our deputy mayor.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of excusing our deputy mayor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
There you go. The traditional, well, actually, in this case, 4-1 vote.
You could vote.
Yes. Can I? I don't know if I can. Okay. All right, let's move on to committee reports and thank you, council. All right, so council member reports? And you can combine both council, city committee meetings as well as any other committee meetings you've been in. Go ahead.
Yes, I have two. The first, the tree board met last week and the tree board approved their recommendations for changes to exceptional tree diameters. We'll be hearing more about that coming up probably in the next couple of months, but big picture, the tree board is aiming to protect roughly 2% of trees citywide as exceptional trees and a higher percentage, maybe 3 to 4% for those that are keystone species that are the most important for our environment. They're also, next month, they're going to be looking at some other miscellaneous changes to the tree code, just to kind of clean that up a bit. Also, later this month on Sunday, April 27th at Horizon View Park at 1 p.m., there's going to be an Arbor Day event. So just wanted to highlight that. And then also last week, I attended Seashore, the transportation forum. We had an introduction from our new Secretary of Transportation, who's in charge of WashDOT, talking about her priorities. We had an update from Metro that they have started or restarted fare enforcement on their buses. Currently, Link Light Rail is already doing it, so now you might see it on Metro routes. And then we just kind of had a board discussion about what we thought about the state's transportation budget and if there's, concerns that we have about priorities in the transportation budget. Happy to talk one-on-one if anyone's interested.
All right, anyone else? Yeah. I have a quick one, which is related to a program that the state just initiated on rebates on electric bikes. So if anybody out there listening to us is interested in purchasing an electric bike, our Corey Matson will be getting out information through our news blast about how to apply for it. I believe the window is only 2 weeks. So, but there are 10,000 potential rebates available. So you have a fairly good chance. It'll be done by lottery. So if you're interested, basically see our news blast.
Sorry, can I add something on
Go
point to
ahead.
that? One of the things about the transportation budget that we commented on, I think it was in the Senate's version, is that they're actually going to have a tax on e-bikes, an additional 10% surcharge. So double reason for if you're going to get an e-bike, get it now because you get in before the surcharge and potentially get the rebate.
Absolutely. Anybody else? All right, Administrator Hill, do you have anything? Okay, well, this must be some kind of record, but I guess is anything for the good of the order? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a move to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. All right, and this must be some kind of record, 7:34. All right. Thank you, everyone.